Frontline with Kortney, Kenny, and I'm Tom Parisi, and today we got a great set of guests. It's another fantastic episode of the Frontline podcast. I'm Tom Parisi alongside Kortney, Kenny, and we are proud to have an NHLer on the podcast this time around, former North Bay Battalion defenseman and current Arizona Coyote. It's Cam Dineen. Cam, we're happy to talk to you. It's been a long time, and man, thank you so much for being here to hang out with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to talking about the time I had in North Bay and everything else.
First, I got to ask you, you finally get into that first NHL game. Let's talk about it. How was it?
Yeah, that first game was pretty cool. I was in Anaheim. Found out like the day before. I was able to get my parents and a couple friends and my girlfriend were able to make it there. So it was really cool. Really special to have them all there. And then, you know, it's been obviously a goal of mine, and it's taken a little bit longer than maybe I was hoping for and some other people were hoping for, but just really grateful that it did happen and that I'm still sticking around.
When it comes to that first call up, of course, it's going to be a whirlwind because, you know, you, on the emotional side, you have to get, you know, up to the NHL and get ready to go. How much of a headache is it trying to get your parents to come out and your girlfriend and all that stuff? Or is it something that you're looking forward to instead of it maybe being a headache?
Yeah, it was a bit of a headache. What more was stressful was we were on. So when I got called up, I met the team in Tampa Bay. They were on like the longest road trip of their season. It was all a bunch of East Coast teams. So I met them in Tampa Bay. I was in Tucson, so flew out there. I think there was 6 more games on that road trip, and I'm from New Jersey. So, you know, everyone was kind of hoping I could have played in one of those games. I think it was Washington, Carolina, Philly, maybe 1 or 2 more on that trip as well. But that would have been pretty cool. And I think a lot of people were kind of anticipating it. So everyone was almost following the Coyotes and myself around for a little bit on that trip. It was kind of funny.
Is it different to play for a team who flies a little bit under the media radar with the Coyotes?
Yeah, I think it's kind of all I've known. Obviously, being in the OHL for a couple of years has kind of showed me what it's like to, you know, be the talk of the town. Being in North Bay, then in Sarnia, it was kind of the same type of deal. You know, everyone knows you around, and being in Arizona just to start, obviously it's not a hockey market. It's kind of on the down low, especially down in Tucson. It's a newer team, only a couple years old. So, you know, it's building, which is great. But up here, yeah, I think it's kind of nice. I think a lot of guys enjoy it. Just it's very laid back in that aspect instead of being in one of the pretty hectic markets.
When you're following, you know, get called up and you're not yet playing the game, and then they finally tell you, like you said, the day in advance that, okay, you're playing tomorrow. What goes through your mind immediately following that conversation?
I was just really excited. Obviously, I think, you know, you just kind of think of everything that you've put into this moment. I got told before a practice that day, and, you know, the whole practice, I was just super excited, super just energetic, like wanted it to be the next day already and just get it going. But, you know, you got to kind of harness that, and you get called up for a reason. They obviously like something in your game, so you want to try to show that.
Go ahead, Tom, sorry.
Oh, no problem. You got robbed of your first goal. Someone tipped it in front of the net. I was watching the highlights. I saw the shot from the point. It was drifting in. Was it Louis Eriksson, I think, maybe got a piece of it? I don't remember.
It was Dzingel. He tipped it.
In his first game.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, I don't think it would have went in if he didn't tip it. It was just a point shot with really no screen. He actually had a pretty impressive tip. He almost like I've never really seen anything like it. He kind of hit it like while it was moving and made it like redirect. So it was pretty nice, and obviously a cool moment for myself, but also I think a lot of the guys were pretty excited for me on that shift and on that goal.
3 assists, 12 games in the NHL so far. Do you have the puck from that shot?
Yeah, I think the trainers have it saved in my gitch bag at the rink. They, taped it up, whatever, and wrote first point, took a picture with it, and they just kind of ask you if it's okay, if they just want to keep it in the stall or whatever you want to do with it.
We've talked to a lot of the guys, or we've talked to a few of the guys. Like we've had Nick Paul on and Mike Amadio a couple of times now, and we asked them kind of what's the biggest thing for them. We hear a lot about the speed of the game, coming up from the AHL to the NHL. But for you, what is the biggest thing going from defending AHL players to now defending NHL players?
Yeah, I think the first thing is definitely the speed, but I think more so it's the ability of the other players to make plays that much quicker. I think that the speed of the AHL compared to what I've experienced so far in the NHL is similar. Everyone's a good skater, developed, they can move out there. So, but I think it's just that at the NHL level, like plays happen a split second quicker. So as a defenseman, I have to be in the right position that much quicker. I got to be on the guy. I can't give him any sort of space because they're the best players in the world. They'll make you pay rather than in the AHL. Sometimes you can kind of get away with, not being right on top of a guy or giving them some space. So that's a thing I've been working on with the coaches here and other players.
It's not an easy, nobody had really Arizona doing much this year, and it's been a tough season. Does that make it easier for someone to develop, or does that make it a little bit tougher each and every night, knowing it might be a battle?
I think in my case, I just try not to really think about that aspect of it. Going into this season, I knew there was a chance that, if I didn't make the team out of camp, that I was hoping to be and thought I could be one of the first call-ups. So I was thankful for that opportunity. And, just whenever I do get in the lineup or just practice, like I'm just trying to get better every day, jump over someone in the lineup, whatever the case is, just to show that I belong here and hopefully will stick around here rather than going back down or whatever the case would be.
I've kind of always been curious about this. Now that you're teammates with this player, I can actually ask a question kind of on a bit more of a different level. He's kind of became a meme while he was in Pittsburgh, and of course he was a Leafs legend for a bit. What's Phil the Thrill Kessel like in person?
That's a good question. I think there's obviously a little bit of a reason for why he's become the meme guy, whatever the case is, a lot of attention around. But at the same time, I think a lot of the stuff that people hear about him isn't true, because what I've seen is just, where he works hard. He's there every day doing his job. He's just loves to play hockey is honestly what it is. I think that's all he knows. That's what he wants to do. And he wants to win. He's always talking in the locker room, giving tips to guys, whatever, great teammate in that aspect, talks to the younger guys, just gives them suggestions. But I think he just wants to win, and he wants guys around him to get better at the same time. I know he's done a good job with the younger core group of guys that have been here for the last few years, like Keller, Chikrin. I think them being around him has helped them just, settle in and find their game, because he's good at helping some of the younger guys. So yeah, I think he's definitely pretty funny and can be a character at times, but I think it all means really well. And yeah, he loves hockey, loves to be here.
Has anybody taken you kind of under their wing and just taught you the ropes?
I wouldn't really say anyone specific. I have a connection with Shane Gostisbehere through Anthony Stolars, who's the backup goalie for Anaheim, who's having a really good season this year. He's from Jersey. We trained together, and he played with Gostisbehere in Philly. So had that connection kind of coming in the training camp. So I, met Ghost then, and then just with getting called up, he kind of was taking a liking towards me, just helped me out a bit, introduced me into the group. So it was good for that aspect, but also I think he's someone that I watch, and it's pretty cool to be out there every day and practice with him in games to see what he does and just try to take things from it.
Now that you're kind of living it for a little while now, the NHL lifestyle, what's been one thing that's kind of surprised you the most of the everyday nitty gritty of the NHL?
I think the schedule. I think, like when you're in the AHL, you only play 14 less games. You play 68 games, but it just doesn't seem the same at all. It's kind of crazy, actually. Like AHL, you practice from, say, Monday to Thursday, then you play Friday, Saturday. Some teams will play a 3-3 or 3-4, but mainly in our division, you'd play 2, maybe 3 games a week. And it's just all you have a couple practices, then you play them all at the end of the week. And like NHL here, our schedule is pretty crazy. Like we're, every other day we're playing almost, where you're not really practicing that much. When you are practicing, it's really quick just to kind of get a sweat, go over a couple drills or a couple ideas that the coaches want to work on. And then you're off the ice and you got to recover because you're playing the next day, whatever the case is. So I think that, the travel's pretty crazy too. We'll play a back-to-back, but the second game is a road game. So we fly the night after the game, get to, say, LA, and then you got to wake up and go through the same routine because you're playing again that night. That's pretty crazy too.
Far cry from busted anymore.
Yeah.
It's a big difference from last year too. Like my first 2 years in the AHL, we being in our division, the Pacific, we mostly flew to places. We're mainly in California, Colorado, so we got to fly. And then last year with COVID and everything, we had a bus everywhere. Even, minimum was 6-7 hours, and we were busing to every game for the weekend, whatever the case was. So it was a big difference last year compared to where it is right now for me.
So let's talk about your time in the OHL. I kind of wanted to ask this question for a while. When I was thinking of when we first kind of made contact, and I was thinking, what are some good questions to ask Mr. Dineen here? And one of them is, this is the story I've heard anyways, is that you were committed to go play elsewhere, but then you came up here for a visit, and that visit changed your opinion, and you changed your mind and wanted to come play for North Bay. What was it that made you change your mind, coming to the city?
I wouldn't necessarily say that it was anything specific about North Bay. I think it was more of the hockey culture, just the opportunity that was in front of me with the battalion. I think I realized that if I wanted to, get drafted, get to the next level, whatever the case was, that it was a little risky, but it was probably in my best interest. And I knew that after coming up there, which helped talking to Stan and some of the other coaches, kind of seeing the makeup of what the team was going to be, that I was going to fit in and play a good amount coming right in, because they didn't really have a defenseman like me. We were slated to have a pretty good team, but the D were kind of unknown. We weren't sure. So going in, I had a big opportunity presented for myself, where I think if I went to the USHL and then eventually Yale, I wasn't too sure about my role, my opportunity in the USHL that following year. It was kind of up in the air, not really talked about, where North Bay showed interest, and I thought that was a good sign.
Well, I know people loved it when you came to town. I mean, 59 points in that first year. That's outstanding for a rookie. Talk about that first year. You get to North Bay, you hit the ice, and bam, you're a huge part of the team.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty crazy now thinking back to it. I think, it was a big adjustment for sure. I had never really played at that high of a level. Obviously, that's the best junior league in the world. But even back home, I played, lower level junior when I was 14 or 15, 16. And then, but I just was always kind of just let go. Like I could just play however I wanted, not really like coach defensively and all that. So I think coming there was a big adjustment at first, but I think the first probably 10 games I thought I wasn't that great. Not many points, maybe a couple points, but and then all of a sudden it just kind of started clicking. I don't really know what it was, honestly, but just, found myself in situations all over the ice that I had chances to score, pass the puck to guys that were open. Just kind of kept the ball rolling. We had some good players as D partners with Kyle Wood. Once he got back from injury that year, having Amadio, Santos up front, we were on the ice a lot together. So I think, passing to those guys, they put a lot of pucks in the net and found me open a lot too. So it was special to be out there with them, and I think it all contributed to the success.
Talking about that team, unfortunately, that was the first year that the team hadn't made it out of the second round of the playoffs. You guys falling ultimately to Barrie. I went to that game 7 against Peterborough that you guys ultimately won to get out of the first round. What do you remember from those 2 rounds of the playoffs too? I remember going, like I said, to that game 7 and the place was pretty loud just for that game 7. So
I remember the opening series against Peterborough was pretty awesome. Like I remember everyone talking about how cool it was going to be, just the atmosphere, the crowd, everything. And I remember standing there. I think I started that first game with Kyle Wood and Amadio's line. And I remember standing there and like the crowd, whatever, chanting and the anthem and everything. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is awesome. And then I remember that was a great series. I think we went to Peterborough and went to like triple overtime one of the games. So that was like my first, real taste of playoff hockey. And even though it was the OHL level, it was still pretty crazy. And then I think against Barrie, we were in over our heads a bit. They had a really good team to begin with. And at the deadline, they kind of loaded up, and we really just kind of stayed the same just because of where the team was at. And in terms of, loading up, gaining assets, losing assets. So we kind of stayed the same. They got better, and they just kind of took it to us. There wasn't much we could do. I remember.
Well, unfortunately, it had to be Barrie because, the team had their number the first 2 years in North Bay. But I wanted to ask, he was Ryan Houlihan. Sorry, I can't say his name. He was an assistant coach that first year, right?
Yeah. He worked with the D mainly. Obviously, he was a forward, but he ran the D, and he helped me a lot for sure. I liked having him as a D coach.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Like, what do you remember? Like, I'm not a player, but I've kind of come to know him as a head coach more so recently, obviously. But what was he like as the assistant coach and the guy that ran the D?
Yeah, I think that's all I know him as. So it's kind of weird now seeing him as the head coach, like you just said, kind of the opposite. But he was pretty just like, with me at least, like just laid back, like kind of let me play almost. But he always had like a couple things, whatever beginning of the week that he would give me, or we would just go over a couple clips and say like, he wanted me to look at this, focus on this. But then it was kind of just like, as long as I was being reliable and not, overcompensating offensively or whatever the case was, he just let me play. He let me and Woody kind of just play back there and do our thing. So it was kind of nice. I was thankful for that, but at the same time, he definitely gave me some good little pointers.
Go ahead, Kortney.
No, sorry, Tom. When you mentioned, kind of playing lower level junior hockey before that and kind of being, let go and just go and play your game. And then of course, Ryan, letting you, like, you're there tinker with what you got. What was it like when you had that structure and you had to play with structure, for the first time type of thing? What goes through your mind when you're like, oh, I can't just go out there and run and gun type of thing?
Yeah, I think I kind of put that together in the first couple preseason games. I remember, like jumping into the play a little too aggressive or pinching, and I was like out of position, or they got an odd man rush the other way, and I was thinking in the back of my head like, probably can't do this here, like, or if I do, I have to be sure of it, whatever the case is. So I just had to learned to pick my spots in that aspect. And yeah, like I think the system that we played was pretty like simple yet effective. So I think it was good for me because it wasn't overly complicated. Some systems can be a little tricky. You got to overthink things, and then you take away from your own game because you're out there thinking about, I got to be in this spot, whatever the case is. But the way we played was just pretty simple. And I think that helped me big time. I could just play and know that the system in the back of my head, like I didn't have to think at all. So it was good.
Moving on to that second year, it's the first chance I got to see you play. And it was only a 29-game season because, if I'm not mistaken, a game in Oshawa, you got hit in the knee.
Yeah, that was tough. It was kind of a little bit of an adjustment season to begin with. Had a really strong first year. The team was good. Everything came back. The second year, we're kind of in more rebuilding mode. We had some of the core players, but then we had a lot of new players. So I was kind of trying to find my game and get better at a lot of things. I got, get drafted that summer by the Coyotes, and they kind of set up a plan for me for that year. Like, they're going to come visit and go over certain video and aspects of my game that they wanted me to work on. So I was going over a lot of different things and trying to figure it all out while still playing how I knew to. So that was kind of good. I thought I made some really good strides in those first half of that year, as far as just my overall game and learning some things. And then, that hit in Oshawa was tough. I just remember coming up the ice, making a pass out wide, and then it was like probably 3 to 5 seconds, like slow motion in my head almost, of their player coming at me still head on. And obviously, if you have that amount of time, 3 to 5 seconds, I'm going to try to get out of the way. I'm not just going to let him run me over. And as I got out of the way, he kind of kept going, stuck his leg out. And it was MCL tear, tore off like where it's attached at the bottom to like a bone in your knee. So it was a rare injury. Usually it just tears in half, but it kind of tore off the bottom attachment and was flipped up. So they had to go in and put it back down and tighten it up. But that was really huge for me too. I think I was working with James Borelli at the time, who was the athletic therapist, strength and conditioning coach, and equipment manager, because that's how it is in the OHL. You got the guy that does everything. And we really focused on my body and, working out and stuff like that during the season while having that injury and doing the rehab as well. I remember putting on some good muscle and going into that summer thinking like I have a head start on the next season because I was going to be ready to play.
It was a dirty hit. I remember from my vantage point, that was definitely dirty. What I don't remember is, did you go to the hospital there, or did you ride the bus back to North Bay?
I rode the bus. James pretty much knew it was my MCL. We didn't know to what extent. He knew it was at least sprained, because it was pretty weird. Like you get hit, you feel something kind of pop or pull, like you don't really know. And then it hurt a bit. You try to get up. Like I remember I kind of stayed down for a bit because it hurt. And then you try to get up and push on it, and really nothing, like no strength. And then the next day I was like it felt pretty good. Like I was walking with like the help of crutches, like putting pressure on it. I remember. So I took the bus back, went into the trainer's room the next morning at our rink, and from there they sent me to get a MRI that I think the Coyotes had called and set up. James made them aware of what was going on, so got the MRI, and then real quick after that the Coyotes said that they wanted me to go down to Arizona to get the surgery done, that they were going to handle it and get me started on the recovery.
Awfully nice of them.
Yeah, so that was good. And they worked with James with the rehab, and staying in shape and everything. So it was really good recovery. It's been awesome, the knee, since then. No issues.
How uncomfortable is like a plane ride down to Arizona when you have an issue with your knee?
Yeah, it's interesting. I did the not the knee, the COVID season last year. I broke my collarbone, and in Ontario, playing the rain, we were playing in their practice rink, in the Kings practice rink, and it's a youth hockey rink basically, and the boards are hard, the glass is rock solid, and got just basically like a meaningless hit, and just broke my collarbone, and I flew home from there with a broken collarbone, which I think was worse than the knee on a plane. That was tough.
Oh, I can imagine. I've knock on wood never had many big issues like that. Where, mind you, I haven't really been on a plane in a long time. The last plane I was on was a little bush plane, so that would be even more fun, I'm sure, with an issue like that. How tough is it though? Like that season, that second year in North Bay, the team, like you said, it was a bit of a rebuild. How tough was it? You're rehabbing this injury and you're obviously keeping tabs on the team or checking in on games and stuff. How tough is it to see them just kind of progressively fall further and further out of the playoff race?
Yeah, it was, pretty tough. I was there every day at the rink, with the guys around them doing the meetings, like as if I was playing still, basically, because I wanted to. The coaches wanted me around everything. I wanted to be a good teammate, support them. I think we had a okay start to the season, and then I remember it falling off, and I would go to all the games and watch, and it was tough. I know a lot of guys were frustrated that season, but they stayed with it and they worked hard, and a lot of guys were positive about it. And I think some guys got opportunities that year that boosted them into a little bit more of a spotlight, and got them some opportunities in the draft, development camps, whatever the case was. So got to look at the positives on both sides. We had some injuries, but other guys get the opportunity to jump in and develop.
Well, one point they were down to 4 defensemen. I think one of them was Daniel Walker.
Yeah, I remember being out with Brady Lyle was out. We were really good friends. We still are. He was hurt. There might have been one. I think Eric Allaire was also hurt at the time. So that was 3D who were, part of the top 4 or 5, whatever it was at the time.
Wasn't
so?
Sorry, I was gonna say, wasn't that the year that Bruce got injured too? Like everybody.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was at one point. Yes. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, because at one point we were all sitting together in the stands watching and just thinking, like, wow, this is crazy. I think there was like at one weekend we had 4 voodoo defensemen playing.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, and that was pretty crazy.
Like that's very right.
I think like Eric Nagy, Bo Pelche, there were Dayton Murray, and I think there was like one other. It's sad that I still remember those names because
well done.
Yeah. And Dan Walker was playing D for a couple games.
And then on the goalie front, like Moran went down.
Warnock got hurt.
Yeah, that's how Syme came in the picture.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. It was, everybody and their mother got injured that year. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was tough. But,
no doubt.
Yeah, the following year was a bit better. So the start at least.
The game, yeah, you did better.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. So let's talk about that. Your last year in North Bay, your last year in the O. I mean, 39 games with the Battalion, 36 points. You're kind of back to the Cam Dineen of old.
Yeah, it was a good start. I think, like I said, I went into that summer before then with some improvements to my body and, conditioning, health, everything, just because I really focused on it for that full half a season, and then continued it through the summer. So I was pretty confident. I felt like, I hadn't played a game in a while, but I made some big improvements. I stayed down in Arizona for a lot of the summer and worked with the skating coach here, skills coach. So I was feeling really good and ready to go. And then just kind of came in and things clicked right away. Yeah, it was a really good start, and things kind of unfolded a little crazy, and I think Stan and the rest of the staff there realized that it was time for them to get back some assets that they traded away in previous years that they needed to start the rebuild, which is obviously paying off now with how the team's doing. So it's good to kind of see that actually. It takes a couple of years for most teams. Not every OHL team can just flip it around and all of a sudden they're back at the top. Very few can do that. So it's good to actually see them. I still follow, and it's nice to see.
Oh, it's awesome to hear. And you know what? As a fan and member of the media, it's like you almost get the bends going from the bottom to the top that quickly. It's it's pretty crazy. But I wanted to ask too. You mentioned being in Arizona throughout the summer. Usually, of course, your winters are spoken for, but usually Arizona is more of a winter destination. How warm does it get in Arizona in the middle of the summer?
It's hot. It's like, well, you guys know Celsius. I only know Fahrenheit. My billets would always get on me about that. I'd say it's whatever it was up there, like 10 degrees Fahrenheit, and they'd look at me like I'm crazy. And then, but it gets on like really hot days, it could be like 105, 110 here.
Wow.
And it's just dry. Like it's weird, but it's hot.
On the Fahrenheit and Celsius side of things, I know a little bit about Fahrenheit because I've spent a lot of time in Columbus, Ohio. So you kind of have to adapt, right? When you're like in another country, you have to figure it out a little bit.
Yeah, and the only thing I adapted to with being up there was that when it gets to like minus 40 Celsius, it's just minus 40 Fahrenheit. It's the same thing.
Just damn.
That's cold. The only thing I remember.
Yeah. Before we get into the trade and everything, when you first come up here, North Bay is not that close to Toms River, New Jersey, of course. What are some of the things that kind of culturally, when you get up here, you're like, oh my goodness, this is very different?
Honestly, like, I feel like the position I was put in with my billet family, like, really didn't feel like that much of an adjustment to me. I had an awesome billet family, still like super close with them. I was up in North Bay 2 summers ago to revisit them and see a couple people up there. So I kind of fit in pretty quick, I feel like, and I didn't really think it was much of an adjustment. Just like the whole, you got to wake up a little earlier to go to school because you got to go shovel the driveway and defrost your car for an hour. But other than that, I feel like it was really easy for me. Once I got to know my billets, I had like a billet brother who was only 2 years younger than me, so he kind of made me feel comfortable.
Was Timmy's like Tim Hortons like a must learn type of thing for you too, or?
I knew a bit about it just from going to like Toronto for some youth hockey tournaments and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't like know the whole like how you order and stuff, like double all that. Like I just would go like thinking it's like Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks, and you say you want coffee with cream in it or whatever, and they'd be like, oh. All right, my billets were like, you just say double or whatever. It's kind of funny, but yeah, I would go there every day. It was nice to have Timmy's all around.
It's funny because I'm like the opposite when it gets to Starbucks. Like we have one now in North Bay, and I'm like, it's like Latin, man. I don't know how to order from Starbucks.
Yeah, I got used to that. It's all they have out here, so that's where I'm always at.
No doubt. So you touched on it a little bit. Get the battalion recouping some assets with the trade. Was there like how far in advance of the trade did you kind of know that something was happening, or did they tell you the day of?
An hour before.
Fair enough.
Well, so it was, obviously you kind of hear some rumblings. There's the Twitter and everything about who's going to be traded and stuff. And I knew that, we were having an okay season, middle of the pack. And there were some teams that were looking to make some upgrades. So I kind of knew that, maybe my name was one of the guys they'd be looking at. And basically nothing was really said to me until about a week before the deadline. Stan called me in and just said, as long as you're good with it, we want to keep you. And I said, yeah, like I want to stay. I don't see a reason to go somewhere necessarily. Like it would be really cool to, you know, be on a top team and try to make a run. But at the same time, I was playing a ton. I was in all situations. The Coyotes were kind of happy with it. Like they just were saying, you know, stick with what you want to do. We're okay with it. And then, yeah, it was basically that day that it happened. We had a practice. I think we played the night before in Hamilton. I remember I talked to, at the time, he was just kind of helping us out, Bill Holder, about something that happened in the game against Hamilton. And we had a really long, good talk, and it kind of went some different ways and stuff like that. And left the rink, went home, got a call from Adam Dennis saying, can you come back to the rink? So I thought maybe something happened with the conversation we had. I thought maybe he relayed the message on to the other coaches and maybe there was an issue with something, or I didn't really know. I was just like, oh, okay. And yeah, I got there and basically Stan said that, you know, they had an offer. Well, it was what they were, I think what they were looking for. I think before that, a lot of teams weren't going to give up that amount. And then, you know, as it gets closer to the deadline, teams decide that, you know, they're going to go for it or whatever. So he said, as long as you're okay with it, it's Sarnia. If you're good with it, you know, it's a good situation. They need a D like you, blah, blah, blah. So I knew their situation. I said, yeah, that's one of the teams that, you know, if it was going to be a trade that I would like to go to. So yeah, it was sad. I had to say bye to my billets and everything there, and a lot of good friends. But at the same time, I was excited, ready to move on and make a run.
One thing that was different about your trade too was that there was like a game like the next night, and they were able to have you come out and honor you a little bit. What was that like for you to come out to the Gardens, get one last cheer from the seventh man?
Yeah, that was awesome. I was really thankful for that opportunity. You know, usually I think the thought was that Sarnia wasn't playing in North Bay again that season, where they usually do like a little video for a returning player or whatever. So I think that they wanted to show their appreciation for me and everything then, which I thought was awesome. I didn't know what to expect going into it. I thought it was almost a little weird. You know, they tell me to put on the Battalion jersey and walk out there, and you know, and I'm like, well, I'm on a different team today. Like, I don't know if I should be putting the jersey on and going out there, but at the same time, it was really cool. My billets and a couple of their friends that I became close with were all there to watch and take videos for like my parents and stuff, and we still have the videos. So it's super cool moment for all of us.
We talked about headaches earlier when it came to, you know, trying to get your parents out to your first NHL game and stuff. What kind of headaches go along with at the junior hockey level, having to move from city to city, especially when North Bay and Sarnia aren't next door neighbors type of thing?
Yeah, it was tough. I think for most Canadian kids that play in the OHL, you know, their parents are able to make it up there for the day of to move their kid, you know, because you have to be like, they told me it was okay to take a day and then be there. I think it was like the Battalion played on that Sunday, so I went to that game, did the tribute thing, and then they wanted me there Monday for practice. So I left like that Sunday afternoon to get there Sunday night. My parents weren't able to make it up, obviously, with that short of notice. It's a 12-hour drive. Yeah, like multiple connecting flight type deal there. So my billets in North Bay, my billet dad and billet brother were like, oh yeah, no problem. Like we'll follow you. Like they took some of my stuff in their car just to make it easier. And my girlfriend was there with me at the time. She's from Jersey, so she was visiting at the time of the trade, which also made it kind of crazy. So we drove from Sarnia, or from North Bay to Sarnia with my billet dad and billet brother following us in a snowstorm. It was crazy.
Does it get more junior hockey in the middle of Canada than driving down to Sarnia in a snowstorm?
Yeah, it was wild. Like we hit Barrie and I think it just got crazy. Like you couldn't see the road. It was dark out. You couldn't see. It was kind of scary, but we made it. And then my billet dad and billet brother made sure, like, you know, they came with me to meet my new billets, which I'm sure is a little weird for them, but it was just kind of that they wanted to give my parents back home like the okay that, you know, he got there, he's good. We met him there, everything's good.
Fair enough. One last question about all that stuff. You know, Sarnia 26 games and then the playoffs. Of course, we want to look back fondly more so on the Battalion side of things, but I mean, I think everybody that followed the Battalion that year was following the Sting in the playoffs. What was it like for you to play, you know, get a different view of the OHL and go on a bit of a run?
Yeah, it was cool. I think our run wasn't as long as we hoped, but at the same time, we kind of knew going in that I think it was the three-headed monster was the top of our division. It was the Sioux, Sarnia, and Kitchener, who basically took all the players from the other conference and put them all on their teams, spread them out, tried to make it as even as possible between the three. And then also like Hamilton loaded up, which was they ended up winning it. But so we knew we were going to have to play Kitchener basically in the second round. We beat Windsor, which they actually gave us a good series, but we knew going in we were going to play Kitch, and that they kind of had our number. We played them a couple times in the regular season, and it was like bloodbath. It was crazy. You know, fights. That were just dirty games, but really intense, fun hockey. But we knew it was going to be tough, and I think we kind of started off a bit slow. We were a little intimidated by some of their guys. We had guys that, you know, they made it really hard on to play the way we wanted to play. So they did a really good job. We kind of fought back and had some chances to win some games that could have made the difference. But at the end of the day, we didn't. And I'm still grateful for the opportunity. I think, you know, the Coyotes were watching all that and seeing me play in those meaningful games against, you know, a bunch of guys on Kitchener who were all signed NHL contracted players that were going to be playing in the NHL or AHL the next year. The Coyotes liked that, and they thought like they saw some improvements in my game from playing with and against other top NHL prospect guys.
When it comes to that season, I always forget that Hamilton won, because I think a lot of people had, you know, one of you three guys coming out, and then Hamilton comes out and wins. When it comes to the NHL teams, you mentioned the Coyotes a couple of times watching you in junior. How much of a say, obviously you're one of their prospects, but how much of a say do they have on, you know, where you're playing in the lineup and all that stuff? Or is it a lot of the junior hockey say, and then the Coyotes just kind of have to go with it?
I think the NHL team has to kind of just go with it. I think they don't really interfere. They have their player development guys that, you know, it's their job to come work with you, go over some video, just talk, make sure everything's going well on and off the ice. I think as far as where you stand in the lineup of your team, that's out of their hands, and they won't mess with that. I think, you know, most guys that are in that opportunity are getting chances by their team and playing in the key moments and stuff like that. So most of the time, the NHL team is just working with your coaches, you know, going over things together to try to get the player to start to develop and understand concepts that he's going to have to use at the next level.
How often do they check in on you?
From what I remember, probably once a month, the player development guy would come on up to North Bay. He came to Sarnia once or twice too, just kind of see a practice, you know, talk, go over video. And then we would do like I think at the time it was like Skype meetings of video and just go over plays that happened in the games. They would be watching all the games, whether they were there or online. So it was really good for me because that was kind of the first time where, other than being on the battalion and having, Uli and Stan doing some stuff with me, but someone really like watching from overhead and really trying to hone in on certain aspects.
It's kind of funny. You would have thought that Skype would have made it out of this taken over. Just I forgot Skype was even a thing till you mentioned it there. So
yeah, I know, me too. I just remember sitting in my billet's basement on a Skype call with the player development guy, and we couldn't figure out how to get like his screen on mine so that I could see what he was trying to show me, and it was just a mess. But I think Zoom makes it a little easier.
Yeah, just a little bit. One last question I have about the battalion. You mentioned, talking to Billy Holder, and I know we've had him on the podcast, and one of Tom's favorite guests that we've had on, and also Adam Dennis. What were those guys like as coaches? I mean, Billy's still one of the coaches, and now Adam's running the team basically from the general manager side of things.
Yeah, it's cool to see Denny getting that opportunity. I think he came in as a young new coach kind of, and he was given the D, so he worked with me a bit, but I think he was always more into having the role he has now. I actually still hear from him once in a while. He texted me about getting the call up in first game and everything, so that was really nice because I loved having him there. I thought he was a great guy and a really good coach that had a good hockey mind and really cared about the players. So it's good to see him having some success with his new role there. And then Bill, I actually knew Bill through my billets. They grew up together in North Bay, went to school together. So I had met Bill like over my billet house, on the weekends, coming over for dinner just to hang out. And he was always big into the battalion, showing his support. Came to all the games. He'd sit up in one of the boxes with my billets, and I think he always kind of analyzed the game because I'd see him after the weekend, and he would kind of give me like a rundown of what he saw. And he wasn't a coach at the time. This was my second year when he was not even helping with the team at all. And you always knew he had that interest. And then it was the year I got traded when he started to kind of pop into the rink a bit. I think that Stan and the other coaches there knew he had some interest. So he started to help out. He'd come to practice, work with the D. And it was really good because he really focused on some stuff with me. And it was cool for me to have the relationship with him outside the rink too, where he would come over and we would talk about hockey and go over some clips or whatever the case was. So it was good.
Was there ever a moment with him where you might not have, when you first met him and he's giving you pointers and you're like, who's this guy type of thing?
No, I kind of got the rundown from my billets on who he was. I didn't really know too much. And then obviously with the internet and everything, I looked him up. I knew like, oh, okay, well, he knows what he's talking about. Like I should obviously listen. So yeah, I think like maybe the first time, I don't completely remember, but I remember like if we didn't play on Sundays, my billets were big Bills fans. So we'd watch football like all day, and Bill would come over to watch a lot of the time. And he was, telling stories kind of his playing days. And I was thinking like, who is this guy? Like, what? And then that was when I got the rundown of what he's done in his career and everything. So it was cool to have him around and kind of be like a little side mentor that a lot of people didn't really know about for the first 2 years there for me.
Living in the States, you mentioned the Bills games. Do you have a favorite football team, or is football not really your thing?
I like football. I like watching it, but I don't really have a team. I guess I grew up a Patriots fan because my dad, he's from Boston, so I kind of have an excuse. Obviously, they were good, Tom Brady, but I use that as the excuse. He liked the Patriots. He liked the Bruins, so I kind of always liked the Boston teams as well.
Well, I was gonna say, was it like some kind of sacrilege to have to watch the Bills every Sunday or something, or was it okay?
No, I started to like them a bit because that was kind of like they're good now, and but they weren't, and that was when they kind of started to get some of their guys that were young, and my Billets were saying like, they're going to be good in a couple of years. You just got to give it time. Like they're on the upward trend, and I would always just kind of say, oh, okay, well, we'll see. And yeah, it's good to see now because I know they're excited up there for them.
So the vibe I'm getting from this is Cam Dineen's very much a fair weather fan.
What does that mean?
It just means that you mentioned, oh yeah, Patriots team because they were good, and then you were like, oh yeah, the Bills are good now, so it's okay to be a fan.
Yeah. I just kind of roll with it. I'd say a lot of guys here have their teams that are up and coming, and new guys like the Bengals, Chargers are some teams with younger players that are up and coming. So I just kind of hop on with whoever, just ride with it.
All right, I have another OHL question for you because it's gotten to the point where it's almost like a drinking game when you listen to the podcast. Take a shot every time Kortney asks this question of a player. For you, playing in the OHL, where was your favorite place to play, and where was your least favorite place to play?
I mean, London's like really cool, obviously. I think my favorite though, probably Kitchener, in Sarnia in the playoffs that year. That was really crazy. Like, that it's a pretty small ice surface there, and the stands just go straight up. It feels like everything's just on top of you. And it was really loud in there with that rowdy fans. So that was super cool. I felt like least favorite, probably Owen Sound.
Really? It's a different answer, Tom.
Yeah. Just like small ice surface, hard boards, like the ceiling's low. It's just weird. Like it always felt like a tough game when you played there. Even though like Owen Sound at the time was like a skilled team with a lot of really skilled players, it just always seemed like it was just like a battle there.
Usually the answer is Peterborough or Sudbury for least favorite.
Yeah, Peterborough's probably next. I was thinking that too. Sudbury, I kind of like. Yeah, I didn't love it, but I kind of like it. I was just used to it. Like it was just, I didn't mind it. It was okay.
Probably didn't help or didn't hurt that they were an awful team when you were playing for the Battalion.
Yeah, so I had a lot of good games there. So that was one of maybe my favorite place.
Fair enough. Last question we got before we let you go. Coyotes recently making the change, of course, in jerseys and stuff back to Kachina. What's it like putting that crest on your chest?
Super cool. I think last year they would use the Kachina as kind of the third jersey, and then they started wearing it more because I think the guys here loved it, and the ownership group here and everything wanted to kind of make that trend in this new direction, new culture, everything. So they kind of wanted to change things up a bit. I think they're awesome. We still wear the red regular old Coyotes ones every once in a while, but I think the white and black Kachina is really cool. It's cool to wear.
Gorgeous jersey. Can't say enough good things about it. Cam, we really appreciate you taking the time here today to get on the Frontline podcast. Got to give a shout out to Chris Dawson, of course, for making this kind of happen a little bit. But yeah, huge thank you to you for making your way onto the podcast. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to watching you a little bit more in Arizona here as the season progresses.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
A huge thank you to Cam Dineen for taking the time to talk to us, little old us, on the Frontline podcast about how awesome it is to be an Arizona Coyote. So I'm Tom Parisi, he's Kortney Kenny, and there's not a whole lot battalion-wise to talk about. Their last game was New Year's Eve. Ottawa decided to make the trip. Hooray for that. But they probably could have done without it, Kortney.
Yeah. Well, let's that was probably and Ryan Houlihan post game talking to Matt Sukram was basically not happy. He wasn't happy with his team effort, and that was probably the least complete effort we've seen this troops team put together in this season, and they're on a bit of a skid now. I think it's 6 games now without a victory.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a rough stretch. Of course, they're going to come out of it at some point. This team is too talented not to, unlike some teams in the past where you're kind of like, oh, are they ever going to win a game again type of thing. But no, this team, you got to have faith with this team, and it's part of the process. And Adam Dennis said it before the break that he thought that they were a little bit ahead of schedule. And you're just seeing some of the growing pains, because you got to remember, this is a very young team. This is a young roster, it's the double cohort. And so you knew that there was going to be a snag at some point, but that effort against Ottawa just wasn't great, and it wasn't fun to watch. And, it started off with a bang, Brandon Coe getting them up 1-0. And then from there on out, Ottawa scoring 5 straight. And one thing just about it is Joe Verbetic just did not have it, whatever was going on that game. The 3 goals he let in, he didn't look good on many of them. And, he's going to find his game. He's a draft pick for a reason. So he's going to turn it around. And hopefully if we get some games, I mean, this could be very out of date by the time the episode even drops. But hopefully, if we get some games here, he can kind of work out the kinks and figure it out.
I hope so. You mentioned it. They're just young. It's their first time going through some of the motions. They'll figure it out. I'm not too worried. Look what they did before the Christmas break, if you will. So they'll be fine. No issues there. No,
absolutely not. And I'm pretty confident too in this leadership group on the ice and the leadership group off the ice. The coaching staff and the front office brass. When they see issues, they're gonna work to fix it.
They usually wait around.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it has gotten to 6 games is a little bit okay, but you could kind of, I don't want to say excuse the first couple because of the injuries, because injuries is kind of, you'll hear coaches across the league say injuries are no excuse. But when it happens to be Kyle Jackson and a lot of your decor and your captain Leo Marnsby, I think you can kind of say that injuries are a tad bit of an excuse. I mean, we just talked to Cam about it in this episode. That first, that second year, the first year you and I were on the CCAP broadcast, that injuries were a very much contributing factor to that team not making the playoffs that year.
Oh, they ran rampant. They missed out. It was a makeup game, remember? It's always a play-in game with Niagara, and they lost that too.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't fun. And
yeah, I'm not worried. They'll be fine. They got a lot of game to go. It'll be good.
Well, and that's the thing. Go back and listen to it, our episode with Commissioner David Branch, who talks about how this season was basically 40-60 on the split when it comes to the season. So we're only about 40% through the season, maybe even a little bit less because of all the postponements. And there's still, 60 to 65% of the season left. If we can get those games in, which knock on wood we can. And of course, that's an always changing situation right now. But so hopefully, there's still a lot of games, and there's a lot of home games coming up.
You mentioned it. I was going to say it. A lot of the games happen to be at home in the second half of the season. So hooray for that. Now, speaking of games, you'd mentioned, some got the boot. Some got postponed. So they have been rescheduled. If you haven't seen it, battalionhockey.com, you can read about it there too. But Battalion is going to take on the Niagara Ice Dogs Tuesday, January 25th. That's to make up a December 18th game. Oshawa is going to visit North Bay at 7 o'clock on Tuesday, March the 8th. That's for the New Year's Eve game that didn't happen, or that did. And then the Battalion go to Oshawa 7 o'clock, March 15th for the New Year's Day game, which they've been doing for ages. So that's the rescheduled games. Mark it in the calendar, consult the website, but that's what you need to know.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's smart kind of putting at least 2 out of those 3 games as far down the road as they possibly can, because, we're still kind of sitting here. And again, this could be very out of date by the time this episode drops. The team is still practicing at this point. They've been given the okay to still practice during the most recent restrictions. We can't really tell you much from there on out, but it's kind of smart, to push those games till March, because at least hopefully by then things have been figured out. We have a safe way of doing things. Fans are back in the building, all that fun stuff. And we're laughing. We're sitting laughing about Omicron and being like, "Ha, remember when that was a thing?" Oh yeah, whatever. Anyways, sad cries. Yeah, so in the Niagara game, talked to Nick Morin on the last episode, asking him what kind of headaches that was to have that postponed game. And he said it was actually pretty easy considering the amount of staff that they had on hand at that game, and the fact that it was going into the break. And Ryan Houlihan said it too. It was a little bit nicer that it was going into the break. It just became more of a, hey, instead of coming to pick up your kids tomorrow, how would you come pick them up today?
Surprise.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Come get them. So the team hasn't really been affected terribly yet by all this stuff. They still have gotten games in, whereas other teams have had to completely shut down operations, like the Barrie Colts, basically. The Battalion so far have been lucky.
I think somebody else, I forget too, but yeah, it's good. Hopefully it stops there. I'm no God, and I wish I could fix it, but it is what it is. And hey, they got a game coming up on Thursday the 6th, Mississauga in town.
Yeah. As of right now, nothing has changed on that front. They are still supposed to play.
All we can say is keep up with Battalion social media, and if you're a season ticket holder, they'll probably call you to let you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they did the New Year's Eve game, telling people if they could get in or not, if their tickets were valid. I think it's pretty safe to say that if this game does go Thursday, there probably won't be anyone in attendance. Look at the Leafs. They had nobody right against the Senators. So Carlton the Bear, MVP of that game, though. I saw him all over social media, with the Go Leafs Go signs everywhere. So good for him.
God bless you, Carlton.
Now we just got to get Sarge running around the stands with, Go Troops Go signs everywhere. So
it'll be fine.
Absolutely. You know what? I think the nice thing is about this time compared to March 2020 is we know a lot more about it. We still don't know everything, but we know a lot more about it. And of course, people are vaccinated, so the symptoms are milder. So hopefully we can quickly find a way through what is this hot mess right now.
Dumpster fire indeed.
Yes, Ontario is burning. It's just how it is.
We had a good run, but at least we know a little bit better. You said how to plan.
Yes.
At least, exactly. Or unless it's the World Juniors.
Oh, did you say that? No.
I did.
Not well, it just seems like the double IIHF doesn't really know how to plan whatsoever, because I feel like we should talk about this before we go. The women's champion, like under 18, why are you canceling that in general? Like, just postpone it, okay? You canceled it last year. People kind of turned a blind eye to it, whatever. They have every right to play as much as the men have a right to play. And you were going ahead, and it was a bad look because you're going ahead with the U20s, the World Juniors. And then you're just coming out and saying, no, the U18, meh. I'm sorry, but that to me that really annoys me. Like, this should not be how it is whatsoever. It should have been, okay, if we're going to, they shouldn't have even been postponing it at the time because you were playing a tournament at that time. It should have just been, okay, we'll postpone it until maybe, April or, May or something.
It's a giant punch in the face to them. Honestly.
Absolutely.
It's stupid that they even considered it's such a sexist thing to do. Even if you didn't need it to be.
Yeah.
I mean, what's different? Other than who's playing. Honest to God. Just postpone it, put it off, see if you can do it some other time, and get it together.
Right.
Honestly.
And then on the World Juniors side, why'd you have to cancel it altogether? You pick it up, blame it on.
Well, they didn't exactly cancel it. They might pick it up.
That's what I think you need to do. I think you need to pick it up later. I mean, you got to think.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, you got to think about, and that's how I view the OHL too. Like, these kids have already lost so much time and development time. And I know the priority is stopping the virus, but these kids have to play at some point.
people also have to be alive to play, though.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that.
So I'd rather they get it right, fix it today so we can live tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Hopefully they do fix it today, because it seems right now they haven't gotten a lot of it right. So, but then we're just getting into a political commentary, and that's not what the
running place. So we'll figure it out one day at a time.
All right, we are now co-premiers. We are running Ontario. That I've just decided it. It's happening. We'll figure it out.
Everyone plays hockey.
Everybody, including their grandmothers, play hockey now. Get out there. No rest for Granny.
Either way, yeah. I think let's call it a day before we get too out of before we go way off topic in a not.
I mean, I just wanted to say, like,
that's okay. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad to know what we had to say.
No, exactly, and it was something that needs to be said. It really is.
Agreed.
It's a tough conversation, but it shouldn't be.
No. I think you're right. Canceling the women's everything they did cancel. If they're going to cancel one thing, cancel it all, or postpone it till you can figure out what to do.
Exactly.
Story. Don't be an idiot. Don't cancel it if you don't have to. All right. He's Kortney Kenny. I'm Tom Parisi. Our fantastic producer, Ben. We can't do it without you. You're awesome. You want to listen to us, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast. Follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc. The Battalion, same deal. Follow them. And if you're watching this on your TV, you can watch the full broadcast now on YouTube. Uncut, mostly censored. Except that one time. Anyhow, he's Kortney Kenny. I'm Tom Parisi. And this was a lot of fun, and we're going to do it again.